Hi, this is Dr. Will Tuttle. I'd like to talk about something that I think is very important, and that is our health and broadening our conception of health beyond just our physical health to include 4 other dimensions of health. And these 5 dimensions of health, I think we have to understand very clearly, are all damaged and harmed and eroded by animal agriculture, by eating meat, dairy products, and eggs, by confining animals for these products, and for anything that requires the enslavement of animals. So when we think of health, a lot of people move toward a vegan way of living, a whole food plant-based diet, very often it's called, because they want to be healthier. And that's, I think, great. I think it's really well understood nowadays that the more we move toward a whole food plant-based diet, the more likely we are to be healthy. That diabetes, osteoporosis, liver disease, kidney disease, autoimmune diseases, heart disease, many forms of cancer, dementia, and so forth are reduced. Our likelihood of developing these diseases is really lessened as we move toward a healthier plant-based way of eating, that animal-based foods concentrate toxins, many different types of toxins, heavy metals, PCBs, dioxins, nuclear radiation, pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide residues, as well as saturated fat and cholesterol and acidifying and inflammatory animal proteins that are there, as well as all the terror and pain and fear these animals are experiencing. So to be healthy physically, it really makes sense to move toward a plant-based way of eating and living. I'd like to also talk, though, about 2 other types of health in the outer world, and then 2 other types of health in the inner world. So besides our physical health, we want to talk about environmental health and cultural health. So it's important to understand, again, that animal agriculture is devastating not just to our physical health, but also to our environmental health. And there's a lot of information we can go into here, but just briefly, it's very clear that animal agriculture is grossly inefficient and uses enormous quantities of land and water and resources in order to feed people, because we have to feed imprisoned animals. And the waste of this system is enormous. These animals convert plant-based foods into huge amounts of sewage, nitrous oxide and methane, which are destabilizing to the climate. So according to the National Academy of Sciences, very conservatively, we can feed 12 people eating a plant-based diet, or 1 person eating a standard Western diet on a given amount of land, similar with water and petroleum. So it's just really wonderful to realize that we can feed everyone on a fraction of the land. It's also important to understand that animal agriculture is the single greatest devastating activity to our environmental health. And we understand that it's not possible for us to really be healthy physically if the air and the water and the soil are polluted and eroded and harmed, and the climate is destabilized and so forth. So to have a healthy environment and have a healthy body, these things go hand in hand and they're connected. The same thing is true with cultural health. Because animal agriculture is so inefficient, instead of being able to feed everyone, we have people going hungry. These chronic food shortages, roughly a billion people on our planet, millions of people are going hungry. Thousands, probably 20 to 30,000 according to the estimates, are dying of starvation every day. These food shortages are well understood to be one of the primary driving forces behind conflict and war in the world, as well as the fact that we have lots of whole armies of workers who are forced to do the terrible work of killing and abusing and impregnating animals against their will, and these workers have very high rates of suicide and drug addiction and alcoholism. So animal agriculture is webs of trauma, not only to ecosystems and to wildlife, but also to hungry people, to workers, and to the whole cultural web. Going beyond these outer dimensions of health, we need to also look at 2 inner dimensions of health. Animal agriculture is very harmful to the inner landscape of our consciousness, because we're eating not just foods that are toxic when we're eating animal foods, but we're eating attitudes that are toxic. And so, again, to have a physical body that's healthy, we know that that's not enough. We need to have a mind that's healthy, emotions that are healthy, attitudes that that are positive and healthy. And beyond that, we also have another type of health, which is spiritual or ethical health. And that in order, again, to be happy and fulfilled and to live an authentic life, we need to have a purpose for our life. We need to understand that we are more than just a material object that was born and will die, and that we have no other purpose other than to consume or to pass on our genes in a materialistic way, but that we are a manifestation of consciousness. So again, it's important to understand that animal agriculture attacks our spiritual health, our ethical health, our psychological and emotional health. And this is unavoidable because the attitudes required to imprison and kill and impregnate animals and to steal babies from their mothers, to steal the offspring and kill them and impregnate the mothers repeatedly on rape racks, as is done in animal agriculture, requires us to harden our hearts and to desensitize ourselves, to disconnect. And so every meal is a ritual of disconnectedness. And yet the capacity to make connections is the definition of intelligence, both cognitive intelligence as well as emotional intelligence. And so animal agriculture is numbing and desensitizing us as individuals and as a society in reducing our intelligence and our capacity to care. It's really about staying shallow, not looking deeply, not caring deeply, not feeling or understanding deeply, and just following orders, and not questioning the official narratives in our society. So it really impedes any kind of spiritual or intellectual growth, because spiritual, intellectual, and emotional growth and evolution and development all require us to question the narratives in our society. Otherwise, we're just merely robotic in our behaviors. We're simply doing what we've been taught to do. And that's true. Anyone who's eating animal foods is just simply following orders. That's why we do it. And so this reduction of our intelligence. Also, another attitude is the attitude of reductionism in general, turning beings into commodities, reducing them to mere material objects that we buy and sell by the pound. Again, this reductionism and materialism, it permeates our entire society, reducing us as human beings to instruments to be used in a heartless economic system, giving rise to competition and injustice. Animals bear the full fury of this. They're sold by the pound. We're sold in many ways in a similar way for financial reasons. And we also have a mentality of might makes right. A mentality that's required also in animal agriculture is the mentality of privilege and elitism. The subtext of every meal is that certain beings are inherently superior. Other beings are inherently inferior, and it's fine for the superior beings to dominate and exploit the inferior beings. So again, how can we create a world of freedom and justice and equality and harmony when every meal is injecting into us and we're eating and building the very physical bodies that we're using to live and the brains that we're using to think, with the exact opposite, a whole set of attitudes based on domination and exploitation and entitlement, and might makes right, and the domination of the weak by the strong. This mentality of exploitation and domination is also especially directed toward the feminine dimension. I think it's very important to understand that animal agriculture is based on the domination and exploitation of the sacred feminine dimension of life and consciousness, which yearns to love and protect life and to protect the babies, the family, the community, the earth. And animal agriculture, it requires us to submerge this sacred feminine. I refer to this in the World Peace Diet as Sophia. Sophia is this feminine wisdom that shines in all of our hearts, whether men or women. And I think especially, of course, in women who give birth and know how it is to love and protect and nurture the babies. And this is the foundation for health for all of us, and healthy families and a healthy society. But again, animal agriculture is based on breaking the bond between the mother and her offspring and stealing the babies and killing them and impregnating her repeatedly and then killing her. So this is something that we are very ashamed of at a deep level. And so this is the basic idea, is to understand that animal agriculture militates against and harms and destroys all 5 dimensions of health, that all 5 dimensions of health are interconnected. We cannot be healthy physically or psychologically or culturally or environmentally or spiritually when the other dimensions are being harmed. They're all interconnected. They all feed each other. And to be healthy means that we are healthy on all 5 levels. And a plant-based way of living allows us, it supports us in this. Animal agriculture always destroys this, and it always has, because it's based on domination, exploitation, abuse, and toxicity. So it's very important to understand and broaden our conception of health. Thank you for listening, and thank you for care.